Mondays through Fridays, 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. in the newsroom. You can't afford to miss it.
Yeah, good afternoon and welcome to In the Newsroom. This moment, the first and the holy month of Ramadan. So to Muslim faithful, I say Ramadan Mubarak. Medical practice, or we call it medical profession, is a noble one, well respected in our society, well respected anywhere. Medical personnel ranging from medical doctors to dentists to nurses, medical laboratory scientists, physiotherapists, and what have you, are seen as lifesavers. They hold a very important position in society, and they occupy a position high in the societal ladder and the societal hierarchy. But some cases recently in medical practice have thrown up some questions into how professionals the medical professionals are now claimed to be. We're talking about cases of misdiagnosis when somebody will approach a medical doctor with a headache, and the medical doctor will diagnose something else and prescribe drugs that will not first work for what the patient has complained about or complained of rather, and second will still damage certain things in the body of the patient. That is the focus of our discussions this moment on In the Newsroom. Oluwatoyin Yusuf is my name. My usual colleague is Akari Adebayo.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you. So, misdiagnosis has been defined as a way where you approach unprofessionally, because we are not professional, but from a layman, we see it as a way that a patient approaches a medical doctor, complain about something, and the medical doctor will diagnose something that has no direct bearing with what is actually, affecting the patient. So, there have been cases, though not many, but we cannot wait until we have several cases taking people's life before we discuss the diagnosis in medical practice.
Well, thank you, Toyin, once again for having me.
I have a pleasure.
You see, when I first heard about the case of misdiagnosis in some of our hospitals, I feel like hospitals, misdiagnosis, then where do we run to? If in case of ailment or disease or any other, where do we run to? Is it not all these hospitals? Then, if we now begin to have cases of misdiagnosis by medical personnel whom you rely on to save you, then it calls for concern. But in this kind of situation, if let's look at it. Who is the body that is responsible for supervising the activities of these medical personnel
or regulating their activities? That is the Nigerian Medical Association.
And what have they been doing? Because in those days when we were young, this kind of issue, I've never had it until just of recent. Case of misdiagnosis. It was not as prevalent as we have it today.
Today, okay.
So definitely something must be wrong somewhere in the way these professionals are carrying out their duties.
Thank you. Yes, before we go to things that could be wrong, I want to be practical with these cases of misdiagnosis and allied issues. And I want to cite instances, not even instances of misdiagnosis, but the lackadaisical attitude of these days medical personnel. Just a fortnight ago, not really a fortnight, but about 2 Thursdays ago, I drove my daughter-in-law to a hospital. She was complaining about a stomach ache, and it was so terrible that I drove them there, and even to walk from where I parked to the hospital door, a distance of less than 25 meters, we had to be supporting her right and left. And when we got inside, we saw a nurse. The nurse could see that the lady was actually in agony. The nurse was just lying down on the couch. She didn't even stand up.
Feeling
unconcerned. So we had to shout at her. After that, I asked her, this hospital that I've been using for 15 years. I'd ask her, do you know me? She replied, yes, Daddy, Mama, I know you. I did attempt to her, I should get a file. I said, you want to get a file? Having told me that you know me, that I've used your hospital for 15 years. So you cannot attend to that lady in Albany until you get a file. That's an example. Another one, that should be about 11 years ago. One of my daughters had a fever, and we took her to a teaching hospital, so to speak. And I was on duty here when I was called that the consultant said that they will have to take cerebrospinal fluid of my daughter to really test whether my daughter had cerebrospinal fever, something like that. And because of the little knowledge I have about science, I know what cerebrospinal fluid means. So I told my wife, please tell them I'm coming. I had to drive down. So the doctor was trying to explain to them, no, please, you will stick a syringe into the spinal cord of my daughter to draw a fluid to treat you. No, please, let me tell you, Coyote, he said I should sign before I could be allowed to take my daughter away. Please bring the papers. I signed. I took my daughter to another hospital. My daughter didn't sleep in that hospital. And up till today, 11 years after, I have not treated my daughter for the same thing. So there are so many things that are wrong with medical practice these days. You even go to many these private hospitals, you see this what we call auxiliary nurses. Those who went to patent medicine, who were running patent medicine stores, who didn't have any professional, training anywhere. These are the people they use as auxiliary nurses. And you see the doctors. The doctor may be away in Ife or at Ekiti or at Ilorin doing one journeyman job or the other, leaving nurses who have no auxiliary nurses who have no basic training in medical practice to attend even to someone who is dying. That's number one, Coyote. Number two, I told you something before we came in that a story came up in newspaper this morning that a man from the East was complaining that someone from Zamfara who scored 180 in JAMB will be allowed to study medicine in a particular northern universities, while his son who scored 240 was not allowed. And I'm sure this thing has been there even from our days. Yes. There are states that is called educationally less developed states. It has been changed. It used to be educationally less advantaged states, but now educationally less developed, states. But now look at 180 to 240 for somebody who wants to study medicine. What will you say about that?
Well, the thing is that you see the criteria by which they were meeting students for medicine. I think there should be a uniform standard for admitting students for this kind of courses, because these are courses that at the end of it all, you begin to deal with human lives. So it shouldn't be taken for granted. I think right from the scratch, so there should be a uniform standard. You see, Nigeria is a kind of country whereby you put sentiment into everything, even including human lives. Because I wonder why somebody from the north will score 150 or 180, then you allow him to study medicine. Somebody that scored 240 from another state will not be allowed in the same university.
Yes, this practice, has always been there. But my concern now is this. The same thing is now finding its way into some private universities, even in the south here. You see some private universities, your child can score as low as 210 to 220. If you can pay your way in, your children will be given admission to come and study medicine.
Yes.
Let me be practical again. When I'm off duty or when I'm on leave, I teach around. So there was a time I was teaching a group of well over 100 students, preparing them for UTME. And I asked them, I think it was last year, how many of you will choose OAU? No hand up. Yes. How many of you is ready to choose University of Ibadan? No hand up.
Why?
Unilag, no hand up. Yes. I didn't ask any question. I knew what was happening. They said the university that they cannot give you admission if you are not sound.
Yeah, that is it.
If somebody peradventure writes an exam for you, the university will still set up another exam for you. So even if you cannot even survive the first year before you are sent packing. But we have some private universities now, even some state-owned universities. As long as your parents are ready to pay, so to speak. In fact, in your own days, when someone failed a course, what do? We have
you carry it over.
Carry it over, and that means extra year.
Extra year.
But now there are universities. If you fail a course in first semester, you'll be allowed to study for 3 weeks when others are on break, and then they set another exam for you so that you write the exam. So that is one of this, not just a big problem confronting education in higher institutions, in Nigeria. Proliferation of universities. And if you cannot give my son admission for medicine, or I cannot, let my child
take him to private universities.
Private universities.
You see, I don't know whether the National Universities Commission, I don't know the criteria, by which they were.
That way they accredit medicine
courses generally for these universities. You see, on the basis of the equipment, you see, on the basis of how much they can pay.
They can pay. That is it.
Because if it is on the basis of, evaluating all the prerequisites that must be on ground before accreditation, I don't think so many of the private universities will not make it.
Yes.
Honestly.
Yeah, yes, it is possible for private universities to spend so much, on equipment or facilities. But when such a private university now gives admissions to students who could not score up to 200 for medicine, what do?
Listen, you see, if at all any course will be treated as all commerce affair, it should not be medical courses. It should not be medical courses, because these are the courses that deal with human lives. And you see, when I first heard about that story, misdiagnosis in some of our hospitals, and you see, some people are relaying their experience of this, their encounter with this issue of misdiagnosis. The situation whereby somebody will have heartburn
and you diagnose as heart failure.
So that means you will have succeeded in killing that person before his or her actual death. That is it now. So I don't know what government can really do in order to stem the tide of this incident, because if care is not taken, I can't really foresee.
Yes, let's look at it from another way too. These medical doctors in any hospitals, whether it is government, particularly government hospitals, also tell you that what do you want them to do in a situation where a particular department, a particular unit is supposed to have up to 10 doctors and they are 3? Would they kill themselves? No, Coyote, let's look at it that way. A particular unit, for instance, maybe gynecology, for instance, maybe ENT, air, nose and throat, supposed to have 10 medical doctors and at least 3 consultants, but they just have 3. And no consultant.
Even at that, that does not mean that we should now continue to produce substandard medical personnel to man our hospitals.
Yes, what universities produce is what the hospitals will absorb. And where you are supposed to have 10 and you have 3 and you have 50 patients. So where doctors are expected to attend to 50 patients, yes. 5 patients per doctor, you see 3 doctors attending to 50 patients. So they will have to, please come in. Hey, what do you go to a nurse? You understand that?
Without proper
attention. I think that should be one of the causes of the cases. Yes. They will tell you some of the hospitals, they are understaffed. And when the hospital is understaffed, then what do we expect them to do? when there are no enough nurses even to assist the medical doctors, or even when the medical doctors are sending the patient and IBEDC cut supply.
Yes.
What to expect them to do?
You see, Nigeria is bedeviled with a lot of problems. One thing affecting the other. Like the issue you are bringing up now. You see, if a particular person, a medical doctor, is being overworked.
Exactly.
If it's being overworked, then you cannot expect
the best
quality, services from that
such a
person
medical
now.
doctor. Exactly.
So,
the same thing is happening in schools. When you are the only English teacher in a particular school, and you are the one to teach SS1, SS2, SS3, and you are given 7 periods in a day per week. So 7 times 5, which means you have to do 35 periods in a week. 35 times 5, we are talking about well over 150 periods in a month. How do you expect such a teacher to give the best to the students? English, mathematics, physics, chemistry. And that is why you see them assisting the students joining West African SSC conducted by either WAEC or NECO. What they couldn't teach the student, they will have to be assisting them. Another problem is that of what we call miracle centers or special centers, where special centers where mercenaries assist students to pass even up to UTME. So somebody will score 280. But give a student who has scored 280 a simple chemical equation in chemistry to balance, he cannot. A simple equation in physics, he cannot. But he has scored 280, and the parents are ready to pay. Oh, you don't even have to pay a dime. The cutoff for medicine is 274. Your son has scored 280. But the question is, those first generation universities I mentioned, at that university, you are sent to another department. If you find yourself in medicine and you cannot meet up, you find yourself, they even ask you to choose a particular department. But these days, as proliferation of universities. And these universities, private ones, the proprietors want to make money. That is it. It's business.
Profit-oriented now.
It's profit-oriented.
It's for business.
Yes, and they don't care about what happens to the society that they operate. So there is a lot. Yes, you want to talk?
Yes, in all this now, what do you think can be done?
Exactly what I wanted to say. There is a lot to be done by the government. There is a lot to be done by the regulatory body, and that is the Nigerian Medical Association. On the part of the government, let us stem the tide of what do we call it? Brain drain. Thank you. Brain drain. Where our medical doctors, those who have become consultants, resident doctors and what have you, will have to leave the shores of Nigeria for the proverbial and cliche, greener pastures. The government will have to do a lot in that regard. Now, thank God, the minimum wage the doctors are now earning very well. Somebody was telling me that even here in Noshun, a fresh medical doctor who has just completed the NYSC and employed may be earning something over ₦1 million. I have not confirmed that, but so many people have spoken that the governor has approved that. So if the governor has approved that and you are young, fresh from school, then you shouldn't be at that level of employment. You shouldn't be talking about overworking.
That is it.
Because you cannot expect a consultant who has spent about 20 years, put in 25 years into medical practice to be working at the same rate as you.
But at the same time, they have their schedule of duty now.
Schedule of duty at the same time, yes, they can still be called.
They can still be called.
And they get paid for that.
Yeah,
they get paid for it. They call I think maybe call duty allowance. They get paid for that. So the government will have to look into that. Ensure that the hospitals are well staffed. And when we are talking about hospitals, for those who are watching at home, we are not referring to our state here, because what we are discussing is not about Osun, but about Nigeria generally. That is it. So the hospitals have to be well staffed now that they are being paid. Secondly, the medical doctors too should have the fear of God. They should put on a human face. they should be like the proverbial woman, according to William Shakespeare, that be a woman who has milk of kindness in her breast. That is it. And then we now go to NMA, Nigeria Medical Association. If a hospital has been found guilty of misdiagnosing not once, not twice, such a hospital could be closed down, or the license of the owner of the hospital be withdrawn. Then number 3, the National Universities Commission, NUC too, should have to wield its big stick on many of these private universities.
Constant monitoring of these
private universities, giving admission
with respect to the quality of education being imparted, especially in the medical area. Not only that, you look at how they are tutoring these students, because in some of the universities they push them rather than train them.
Yes, they push
them. And once you push somebody from 100 level to maybe 500, and the person graduates as a medical doctor, so long as he has that certificate, people will not want to believe that he doesn't know anything.
And another thing from my end is that we discussed it, some time ago on this program, that that the Ministry of Health has some jobs to do in orientating the public. We have layers of hospitals. We have dispensaries. We have primary health centers. We have clinics. We have state hospitals, and we have teaching hospitals. So the situation. For PhD should not be taken to PHC, and that of PHC should not be taken to clinics. That of clinics should not be taken to state hospitals.
And that of state hospitals
should not be taken to teaching hospitals, because that is where overworking comes in. That is it. So when you have a headache that primary healthcare centers can handle effectively, you quickly run to Osun State Teaching Hospital to complain about headache. You take a bruise to teaching or Osun Teaching hospital, and here there are more serious cases for the doctors to attend. But because I take my child there, people know me. Oh, these are people from Osbc. Alaji, what are you here for? They abandon the serious ones. I could be guilty. You too could be guilty. Those who are watching not too could be guilty. Those in government too could be guilty. Hey, Commissioner, for what? Your child, what is it? She just complain about headache. Commissioner, take your child to a primary health care center. But who dare say that to Commissioner?
You want to lose your job?
You want to lose your job. So these are the things we still believe the Ministry of Health too should do. We are doing our own now. Members of the public need to be given proper orientation as to where a particular patient, where to go for a particular treatment. Not everything should go to Osun Teaching Hospital. Not everything should go to Ashubiaru. There are primary healthcare centers now already equipped by the government. Many of these primary healthcare centers effectively would deliver pregnant women of their babies effectively.
There's some people who still prefer to go to
Ashubiaru or to go to Osun Teaching Hospital. Well, we have said our own. We're talking about life when it comes to medical practice, and we cannot joke with that. It's a noble profession, but those who are in the profession too will have to be nobly in their approach, to duties.
Then their disposition to
good duties. Now that the federal government, the state government have checked up substantially their salaries, then they have to put in the best. At this moment, the curtain draws onto this edition of In the Newsroom. Oluwatomi Yusuf is my name. My colleague has been.
Thank you.
Join our colleagues tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the rest of the day. Good evening.